Hello all. The webinar will begin in about 1 minute. Thank you. Great. Well, hello. Welcome to this Chorus webinar series focused on law firms. This is the third webinar in the series where we take a deep dive on bids and proposals. During the webinar, please feel free to submit questions through the GoToMeeting panel, and we'll get to as many as we can at the end. My name is David Mead, and I'm delighted to introduce our panelists and facilitator for today's webinar. First is Kat Robinson. Kat has been working in pitching for over 13 years at multiple law firms and with the Big Four. She currently heads up global pitches and pursuits at Hogan Lovells. In this role, she oversees the end-to-end process and an award-winning bid team who focuses on the largest must-win opportunities for the firm. Kat is also responsible for improving the quality of the pitches overall at Hogan around the world. Kat's focus on increasing win rate by reframing the pitch process from being internally focused to one being focused on the customer experience has earned her and her team the 2018 Bid Team of the Year by APMP. So Kat, congratulations on that and welcome.
Thanks, nice to be here.
Now, regarding that award, I'd also like to recognize Ruth Stringer and her team at Eversheds Sutherland for winning this year's Bid Team of the Year. I think Ruth and some of her team is on this webinar today listening in. So congratulations. For those of you not familiar with APMP, it's a bid management association for bid management professionals, and it's comprised of companies from all over the world. Canon and all types of companies, probably a small percent of which are law firms, so that the fact that we've had two big law firms here win back-to-back Bid Team of the Year, I think is fantastic and remarkable. So congratulations to everyone there. Our second panelist is Nora Navin. Now, Nora, I had the pleasure of attending a Baker McKenzie partner meeting in DC with Nora, and it's clear, as I watched her dealing with the heads of that firm and the rainmakers and collaborating with them during those meetings, it was clear why she's in her role as Global Director of Pitch and Pursuits Excellence there at the firm. Prior to joining the firm, she spent 13 years at EY in various roles, pursuits, marketing leadership, and BD roles. And she's made a career out of focusing on winning work, coaching teams, and evolving and enhancing the pursuit process for the betterment of her team and the firm. And to that end, Nora manages proposal centers around the world, which we're going to hear more about. Now, last but certainly not least on Nora is the fact that she is a recognized champion of diversity within her team, across the firm, and in the general market, in her broader community. And we are once again painfully reminded of the importance of such champions with the death of George Floyd. So, Nora, thank you and welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah. So our facilitator is Joost Elster with InsideLegal.com. Joost has extensive experience in market analysis, market research, public relations, and product marketing for the legal industry. So welcome, Joost. And as I turn the virtual floor over to you, let's bring up the first poll question for the audience.
Wonderful. Thank you for having me, and really excited to be part of this panel today. So while we get going here and, sort of ask you what your, where you are in terms of proposal automation bid management software, I think it's might be useful to give you some insight too into sort of our audience, who, you who have been dialing in today. So we've had a unbelievable turnout. We had over 240 RSVPs, which is phenomenal, which is reflective of the caliber of guests we have. And just, for your information, about roughly 40% of you dialing in are on the bid, proposal, and pursuit side. 20% are in the business development role, and about 15% are marketing. And then there's others that are in, just different consultants and that sort of thing. So just wanted to share that, to kind of set the stage a little bit. So let's see. So there's about 34% that have some sort of a system in place. 50% do not. And then 16 sort of other or not, NA. Before we jump into our first sort of theme, do you have any, Nora or Kat or David, any comment on that? Does that surprise you? Either way?
Personally, not hugely. I think it's something that people are starting to look at, but historically hasn't been, the prominence of where teams spend their time and money. But it's certainly, evidenced by the fact that we're here today. It's something that we are all starting to focus on and really put energy into actually investing in. So,
yeah. Okay. Great. So let's sort of start with a little bit of a big picture view. So one of the topics that we want to talk about and sort of, talk with the audience about is the buzzword of digital transformation. So let's explore that a little bit. Obviously it's something that is very relevant, not only in the legal vertical, but in other verticals as well. Let's explore digital transformation as a whole inside, where you sit, which is, on the bid and proposal team side. Can you briefly share maybe some of your thoughts on, what your firm is doing in regards to digital transformation and where what you are doing on a daily basis fits as part of that? I think that would be a good place to start. And then we'll drill down into more of the details a little bit later. Kat, you want to get us started on that?
Sure. So in terms of digital transformation, we have a number of different projects going on at the moment, and I think the firm really does see it and see digital transformation and the technology and tools that we are focused on as a way of enabling our M&BD staff and our lawyers to be more effective in terms of their day-to-day roles. They see it as an investment in terms of reducing time that we're spending working on, whether it's pitches, client relationship management, whichever facet of the technology transformation we're working on. But as with all firms, it's always a journey, and I think we're at different stages for different areas of the business. As you can see by my job title, I sit in the operations and systems team, so know our team that work on this really closely, and they work super hard at finding new technologies, embedding new technologies, and actually really thinking from the ground up about what will work for the firm specifically. So definitely something that we're investing a lot in, but as you say, it's a journey, and it's something that takes time and effort and energy, and I'm just really pleased that I'm at a firm that are kind of taking it seriously and investing in it really.
Is that being driven from the top down at Hogan? This
Yeah.
whole strategy?
Yes, definitely. I think particularly around as I say, thinking smart around where we do spend our time and what effort and energy we put into certain areas of marketing and business development, and making sure that our partners who, have high charge out rates, let's be honest, all lawyers do, thinking about actually what they're doing in terms of their spend and their time is certainly important. I think from a marketing and business development standpoint, we certainly have the buy-in of our leadership and our executive group, and the head of our operation systems team is very much bought into it, and she's a great ambassador for what we do and puts a great platform for the whole team.
Great. Well, Nora, tell us a little bit about how things work at Baker McKenzie in terms of digital transformation.
I feel also fortunate, like Kat, work for a firm that's investing in giving us the tools and technology to do our job better, faster, more efficiently, and with a higher level of quality. Like Kat, our firm is undergoing transformation across services, everything from the tools the lawyers use to all of the business services functions. And one of the key benefits to this is that when our systems are available and data is available across functions, then we're all able to see the same information, the same data, the same results, and literally sing from the same sheet of music. So it's really important that our pitch rates and win rates and things like that are visible at the client level, at the practice group level, at the industry level, at firm levels, so that we can all see what we're doing, what we're accomplishing, and where we need to shore up. So that idea of everybody having access to the same buckets of information, and there's no question about what I can see versus what the lawyer I'm on the phone with can see, is a huge advantage to us.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, especially the last 3 months or so, I can imagine trying to keep connected in that way. Yeah. That's great. I think, David, do you want to talk a little bit about sort of, digging a little bit deeper into having Kat and Nora talk a little bit more about their specific journeys as it relates to bids and proposals and what they do?
Yeah, that would be great. I think Hogan, we've been dealing with Hogan Lovells for over 3 years now, and in both cases, as Baker McKenzie came to the table too, they were both very driven by the IT groups. And so that was, I think, a huge benefit, because it was kind of led by IT. They got their act together. In some cases, there was formal project management going on, and that really helped, drive the process and connect the dots and integrate the systems very effectively in both cases. But Nora, would you like to comment more? I guess this is your screen here on the journey that you've been through there at Baker's. Yeah.
Sure. So starting with just a little bit of background, I've been involved in pitching on both sides, issuing and responding to RFPs for many, many years in many different industries. And while I've seen some tools that help with the process here and there, I hadn't seen a lot of change or a lot of tools that were really coming at the market from the perspective of the pitch function itself. And when I started to see some tools over the last 5 or 7 years, some names started to pop up, and they included functions like data and reporting, collaboration, working within tools that we develop our pitch in, like PowerPoint or Word. They perhaps have artificial intelligence components. And of particular importance to me was working for the last almost 20 years in professional services, finding some help for the situation of partner and lawyer biographies, CVs, resumes, whatever you want to call them. But some sort of help around that in particular was key to us. So Anyway, so we started to look at the tools. We went through the process, and when we found something that we thought really fit in well with us, as David said, getting the IT team involved early, having them help us select the tool. They attended all the demos, they read all of the responses, they helped us with our initial research, so that we were on the same page with that all through the process was incredibly beneficial. We were, again, everybody's on the same page and working toward the same goal, which was established up front. So as we went through that process, it was very helpful. We still have a weekly meeting with our IT team and walk through what we need to change, what adjustments we need to make, how do we continue to onboard our offices. We're well over halfway through the process. We're probably 80% of the way through implementing our program and tools across the firm. It's been a busy year and a half, to put it mildly, but it's also been really fun. I often joke that I feel sometimes like Captain Sullenberger, who landed a crashing plane on the Hudson River in New York, that everything in Captain Sullenberger's career put together led him to that moment, and he was able to successfully execute. And not that I'm going to put a plane down in the Hudson, but I feel like my team, my experience and the teams that I've worked with in a similar way have put me to the point where I've done all of these things one-off throughout my career. And so this implementation was sort of the culmination of that. And as hard as it's also been a lot of fun. And I've had an amazing team on all sides from all departments of the firm working with me.
I have a quick question for you, Nora. Going to put you on the spot just a little bit here. Something you said made me think I'd love to get some more details. So you were saying that you've been on all sides or both sides of the proposal process, right? So what would you say, since our audience is largely on the law firm proposal side, when you were receiving the RFPs from the outside counsel, from the firms, what, in retrospect, was there anything that you wish you had, those proposals had?
Well, I was in a little bit different. I wasn't in legal at that time or professional services. I was actually in telecom and healthcare and even a little bit of nonprofit. And I think one of the things that I think helps with the process is to not just keep asking yes, no, or multiple choice kind of questions. Questions that are open-ended that allow firms to differentiate themselves, I think provide a lot more color and picture of what you're getting with the team that is proposing to you. So while there's this, constant struggle with procurement who wants to operationalize and make everything an apples to apples comparison, I think it actually shows a lot more of a firm's true colors and what they can actually do for you and the chemistry with your organization if there are more open-ended questions asked.
Okay, good point. Back to you, David.
Yeah, great. So Nora, tell us a little bit more about how you operate around the world.
Well, I'm very fortunate to have really an amazing team, almost 100 people across the globe. We have our team sort of divided into two functions. One is an expert pitch function, and we work on the sort of highest value opportunities that come our way, and we go after those with really high caliber pitch and proposal experts who've been doing this all their career. We have a second function that assists our BD teams with the way they work on a pitch. So we don't have enough resources to give everybody that high-end help, but we do have document management teams who compile the document using our Quorus software and send it off to the partner and BD teams for customization. So it's kind of a bit of a patchwork, but we have those document management teams in 3 of our service centers around the world, and there's about 50 people total on those teams that all report up to me as well.
And how about your results? I mean, what are your key metrics? What are your key measures that as a team that you focus on?
Well, of course we focus on win rate, but honestly, I'd really like, we do monitor things like pitch volume. We monitor that against, geographic location, practice group, industry group, et cetera. But surprising, this probably won't surprise people in law, but what I'd really like to do is pitch less. We pitch on virtually everything that comes our way, which is not necessarily the best approach. It's kind of a kitchen sink approach. And I'd really like to see us targeting more. I think that it's a better use of valuable resources and partner time to be spending on opportunities where we have good relationships, where we potentially have previous work, et cetera. So I'd actually like to see the volume of pitch go down and the win rate go up.
Great. And how about consistency? I'm sure that you have greater consistency now.
We do.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and I think it wasn't necessarily a huge problem, but it, with our resources, our materials kept in different resources around the firm. Our pitch materials were, local to an office or kept in a practice group database. We kind of had to go all over the place looking for materials. So having a central repository is extremely helpful. It also presents a challenge in that there's a lot of material. So one of the projects that we're always looking to undertake, and we get a little bit of structure and resource availability, reworking all of those materials. But that also becomes easier if they're all in one place. Keeping things updated is much easier, but we just really need to reduce the volume of material that we have as well.
Yeah, it's interesting that as I work with law firms around the world, I would say the majority probably use Word primarily for their pitches and RFP responses. You all, and other law firms do, of course, you guys use a lot of PowerPoint.
Right. We're about 60-40 PowerPoint Word.
Yeah. And do you find that, that format works well for your company? Everyone's obviously comfortable with it.
Yeah, everybody's really comfortable with it, and I think functions like our design teams do a great job, put out some really good-looking documents. It's harder for the everyday person to have a lot of design in a Word document. So I think working from PowerPoint is an advantage there. But we're happy to work in either, honestly. It's more about what the client wants and what the partner wants. The tool that we use, the program that we use to produce the actual document matters a little bit less to me.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. All right, Yopes, back to you.
Yeah, so similar to what Nora just described, Kat, really interested to kind of get your perspective on your journey as it relates to bids and proposals. And I know that just like with Nora, you have I think it's EY, right? You have a Big Four accounting background as well. So if you could share that, and then sort of maybe culminating in with the award, and kind of walk us through that would be great.
Sure. Yeah. So I similarly to Nora, worked at EY for a few years, and I've worked at other large law firms as well. And then initially, when I came over to Hogan Lovells, was focused on the UK, continental Europe, and Africa. And then I think it was December, sort of end of the year 2018, was then moved into my more global role. So my role is really kind of about constantly looking for how we can make improvements across pitches as a whole, whether that's the operations and systems that we are using, the quality of the outputs, the go, no go decisions that we're making, and really thinking around kind of the client experience and what the clients need from us, whether that's an internal client, so our partners and lawyers, or whether that's an external client, and how we can actually kind of build relationships with them. So I think everything I've learned to other firms has similarly to Nora kind of brought me to where I am today, and pleased to be sort of heading up the team and looking at new projects that we can be working on, and sort of starting to think about how I can kind of make my impact. I had a little period off last year when I had my daughter, so I'm now back and semi-fresh and looking to the future. But yeah, so in terms of our journey, I think I mentioned a little bit around technology earlier. We, in terms of embedding the Chorus software, we launched it David will probably correct me, mid 2018.
Yep, that's right. Yep.
It's about August, I think, when we started implementing it. And through the past 18-ish months, have seen other teams really starting to adopt it and get used to actually using the platform, whether that's in creating their RFP responses, collaborating on RFP responses. I've definitely noticed that the quality of outputs, particularly the first drafts, are a lot higher, and we're getting to that first draft quicker, which is really good. And getting less frustrated emails and calls from people sort of saying, I can't find content on X, which is really good. Because it's those little elements that as a BD team we were finding just were wasting time. Particularly around similar to Nora's CVs. When I first joined the firm, I had so many people saying, can you please do something about the CVs? Because I spend so much time copying content from our website, which was where they were going. So just little things like that, right the way up to reporting. So I have been running this morning some of our reporting for our leadership team around the pitches that we've been working on recently, and not just my team as a firm. And it's fantastic at the moment to be able to see that people really are engaging more with our reporting and actually updating and letting us know exactly what they're working on, because that was, to be honest, quite hard to get hold of previously. So that's kind of our journey. I can't take full credit for our APMP award at all. It was a massive team effort. My counterpart Erica and I kind of worked really, really closely on getting the teams. We had sort of, before I started, there's kind of two very separate working teams over in my region and then in the Americas, and we worked really closely at getting a joined up offering for the firm and working on certain projects around raising the quality of our standards, looking at how we build knowledge in pitches across the firm, so training, learning and development, sharing best practice, whether that was kind of monthly newsletters, building out our intranet system, and building up some of our tools like infographics, pitch kind of questions to ask clients, and just really kind of raising the bar of what we worked on. But I mean, we were supported by a much smaller team than Nora, quite a small team, but of really, really great pitch managers. And I think we were both, and our manager Andrea, sort of head of at that stage, Andrea, were really proud of our team and everything that they achieved in the period. So
wonderful.
Yeah.
Hey, Kat, could you talk more about your go no go decision and how that works, and if and also your focus, your team's focus on shifting the experience to one more focused on the client from a pitch perspective. Could you talk to both of those areas?
Sure, yeah. So the go no go is we have more of a conversational sort of process to it at the moment. So we're based around kind of 5 key steps and key areas that we look at when we're sort of deciding whether we should take a pitch on. So they're based around kind of how our relationship sits with the client and how well we know them, the geographic coverage, whether there's a realistic chance of us actually being able to win the work, but also actually source the work. Also kind of sharing some best practice around the way we actually will work on the matter, other legal teams that might need to be involved, and basically kind of trying to create a picture of what that opportunity looks like for the firm. We haven't yet gone down the routes that other firms have gone down around kind of more of a scoring metric system. And I'm currently actually kind of weighing up the pros and cons of how we do that and what that would look like, because I think it's very different for every firm that you look at, and it has to be very bespoke to what our situation is at the moment and also where we want to get to for kind of the next 5 years. So we're looking at that and kind of examining how that might work. But it's I'm really about enabling and empowering our teams to really go out and have those conversations. And we actually today, we've been running a series of pitch training in the past 2 weeks. So today I've run 5 hours of training today, and one of the key topics was on go, no go, and the teams got really engaged in some of the exercises. We're kind of sharing examples of great conversations.
That must be pretty tricky with, some powerful people wanting to bid on some of these opportunities and potentially, saying no.
Yeah, exactly. And I completely understand the partners' fear a lot of the time. They don't want to damage relationships with clients that they're trying to build with, and they want to be out in the market building their reputation. And to be honest, even if there's something that isn't necessarily in their kind of niche, but they see it as a really interesting project that they want to work for, they want to pitch for it. And I think our role is to kind of help manage their expectations in those situations and help them focus on actually what the realistic chances are of us winning. And again, as I said earlier, kind of where they should be spending their time and what they should be spending their time on. So sometimes we just give them different options for, okay, if we're not going to give them the gold standard for this opportunity because it's not something we can win, what else can we give them? And are there other documents that we can produce using systems and software that will kind of quickly tick a lot of the client's boxes without spending too much time? So it's kind of different aspects that we look at.
Great. And how about that remaking of the focus more on the customer experience?
Yeah, so that really is just about engaging with the client more. So kind of similar to what Nora said around asking them more open-ended questions, trying to get the partners and the lawyers to engage with the client more throughout the process, but also thinking about what our program internally looks like. So making it easy for everybody, if they're not a technical pitch person, to understand how actually you can get clients to engage, and thinking about different presentation methods that just get people involved, so we're not just presenting at them, we're kind of creating more of a fun opportunity for us to build in all of our presentation sessions that we work on with clients.
Great, thank you. And what about, you're also charged with improving the overall quality of the pitches going out of Hogan in general around the world. What's your focus there? What are the things that you're doing to achieve that?
So to start with, obviously the training that I mentioned, that's step one, and helping the teams to understand what they should be doing and when, and creating consistent behaviours around the firms that our partners and lawyers see the same operation, no matter where they are, who they're working with, because that's really important that they get the consistency that they need. Looking at some of the content that's being written and making sure we're sharing best practice, helping with the drafting of certain elements of pitch content. So I actually just, with one of our project teams, just rewrote all of our content on some of our kind of legal technology, and basically worked on pulling out the benefits and the features of all of our different projects and tech that we work on. So just basically looking at certain elements and helping to improve those. And then looking at broader projects around design, templates, around kind of how we engage with clients, diversity of teams that we're putting forward. So we've got, it's funny because every time I went through different sections of our training today, I was saying, oh, we've got this project we're going on, and we've got this project we've got going on. So there's loads of there's a lot of balls in the air and lots of things that I think our MMBB team will see change on in the next few months and years, but all quite exciting stuff. And yeah, so I'm hoping, basically my goal is to get more people to love pitches as much as I do and my team do. And I know that's not always possible because we are complete pitch geeks, But just I would even if I can get a few people sort of looking forward to doing a pitch, or when anyone comes in being like, yes, like I am, then that would be at least a small positive.
That's wonderful. So to Nora and to Kat, you obviously are big global firms. Do you see differences around the world in terms of pitches and how it's done and what the process is typically? I mean, does it vary a lot by region, or is it fairly consistent?
Definitely. Nora, I don't know if you want to go first or if you want me to
Yeah,
jump in.
I agree, Kat. It does vary. In my opinion, I think our pitches coming out of Europe are probably the most sophisticated, the process itself. It often includes meetings with the client. It often includes presentations, and it's less procurement driven. I think in Asia, it's more short-term pitches. It's a lot of procurement-driven pitches where they, sometimes the document is a spreadsheet. It's not even a PowerPoint or a Word document. You're filling out a spreadsheet. So it is very different. There's much shorter deadlines in Asia than there are in other countries. The North and Latin America are somewhere in between, I would say. But that's just a very high level generalization, but we definitely do see trends like that.
Very good.
Yeah, definitely. I'd say we also have our own internal nuances as well. We have different technology that teams around the world like to use. So our Asia team use more, and European teams use more PowerPoint. London use more Word, and America use InDesign. So that's one of our things at the moment we're really trying to focus on, is getting that consistency across the board. But obviously, if a partner's used to seeing a pitch done in InDesign, they love the look and feel of that. So Word doesn't quite match up. So I'm like, PowerPoint is the in-between. Let's go for this one.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Great. Well, why don't we sort of launch another poll here, and this will give us an opportunity. The results might not be what you think. So especially sort of during this pandemic time, what's going on with the volumes of the proposal volume? Is it up? Is it down? And this is sort of our transition poll question to the next topic, which is about, not only the volumes, but what have you done in the meantime to, well, beforehand, maybe anticipate change, but also in the meantime, sort of, what change management pieces have you been implementing, or what changes have you made to correspond with, what's going on globally. So let's see. And this was really interesting to me when we were talking, ahead of our discussion today, when we were catching up beforehand, especially Nora, what you were sharing in terms of, how your teams have been able to, to some degree, anticipate some of these downturns. I think that will be really interesting to get into. So I'm curious to see what folks are saying here. Let's see. About 20% increase, decrease, stayed the same. You said, was that you, Nora? You said that's interesting?
It is interesting. I actually found the answers on this poll to be difficult to think through. When I look back at our own experience, we saw dips and then peaks, if you will, in pitch volume, and it absolutely corresponded to where COVID was hitting in the world. So late January through about mid-February, we saw a dip in our Asian locations. In kind of late March to mid-April, we saw that same very similar dip across Europe and the Americas. So it's now dipping a little further in Latin America as they wrestle with some of the pandemic-related interruptions. But I will say the dips have been fairly short-lived. They climbed back up, and we're now at a global number where we have returned to regular pitch cadence and volume globally. I would say that it was kind of nice in a way to have a little break in the action. And we were able to move resources onto some projects where we worked on our content or we organized our materials within Chorus, and having some time to do some of that maintenance to our own team's materials and things like that was really beneficial, gave everybody a little break from a deadline driven world. So managed to keep everybody busy, no problem. Endless projects, but it was, my personal perspective is that whole question would be hard for me to answer because it did all three, just in a different order.
Yeah. Well, I thought it was fascinating, when we were talking about it earlier, that based on what was happening in Asia, obviously a month or so before things were happening here, that you were able to use that, data and gather intelligence and then make, react accordingly, which can't be said for most countries. So anyone who says, right, law firms are behind the 8 ball when it comes to innovation and using data, and no way. I was really impressed by that. The pressing as well. But yeah.
Yeah, having some advanced reporting capabilities so that we could really understand like what the volume was, not just that, but what practice groups, now that we're on the upswing, what practice groups are pitching more? What's the what's driving the need for that? And so we're able to really structure our resources around what's needed in the legal market right now. So huge advantage to be able to have the kind of data that we do to do that kind of reallocation based on client need.
Wonderful. How about you, Kat? What have you seen?
Yeah, very similar. I would say we didn't quite track it probably as well as Nora did in terms of predicting and looking at Asia. We had some conversations with our Asian colleagues and over in Asia, and they sort of highlighted some areas that we were looking at and where sort of practice areas where they were seeing some of the pitches uptick and down, and we kind of tried to predict where we might have the need. But to be quite honest, we had about 2-3 weeks where we had a bit of a dip, and as I said previously, I kind of suddenly went, oh, what's going to happen here? But then the Monday morning came of the third week, and it was business as usual. And as much as I was trying to predict what was going to happen, we were just kind of fighting the pitches that were coming in. I would say it's helped us to, particularly being able to run reporting, it's helped us to actually look at what types of pitches we've got going on. So I'm certainly seeing that we're not seeing quite so many of the big panels that we were seeing. We're seeing kind of medium size, but our team's working on a lot of the kind of really large transactional, large regulatory pitches, a lot going on for quite a lot of our key clients. And so actually it's opening up some really exciting opportunities for our team to get to know and understand some of those, the ins and outs of those areas a lot better than they used to before, because obviously we do focus on the more kind of panel pitch opportunities, and just due to time and number of people in the team, we don't always get to know kind of all the ins and outs of a regulatory pitch, for example. So that's really been a great learning curve for the team. I think they've all really enjoyed it, and they're kind of like, can we do more of this? So that's really positive. Yeah, I would certainly say we're now looking and doing monthly reporting, and I actually check on a weekly basis to look at what's happening and try and follow what the flow is. And our leadership is certainly paying a lot of attention to what pitches are going on. So that's always good when you head up a pitch team, that people are interested in what you do. So,
Kat, I have a quick follow-up on you mentioned reporting, and you talked about it earlier as well. Are you referring to primarily internal reporting? Like how, or are you talking about reporting? Because I know you can do that as well, I believe, with the technology to get feedback on how pitches and RFPs are received and what people are looking at and that sort of thing.
So more internal reporting, so looking at the number of pitches we have, different regions we have. So we run it by practice, sector, region, type of pitch, and then it's broken down by sector into subsectors and sub-practice areas. Sorry. We have done some outreach to our clients, but we've really been more focused on allowing our business development colleagues who focus on more of the kind of sharing our best practice, guidance, thought leadership to be more focused on some of their communications with the clients, and are slightly taking a little bit of a backseat because we don't want to overload clients with constant communication, but we'll be back there with requests for debriefs on our pitches very soon.
Okay, thank you. David, did you have anything else? Because I think what we're sort of at the end, believe it or not. And I know we had a couple of questions that we want to get to before we end.
Right. And who is, let's see, who's bringing up those questions? Am I?
Do you want, I can pop in, guys. Hey, it's Jennifer. You can hear me okay? We do have 3 questions. So the first one is, do you all have, so to Nora and Kat both, do you all have an RFP evaluation or scorecard that you use in the firm?
Which you addressed somewhat, I think. Yeah, go. Either of you, go ahead. I know that, Kat, you mentioned it, right? That's something that you're working toward.
I don't know if Nora wants to cover that off, what they have at papers.
No, go ahead, Kat.
Well, I mean, I summarized earlier that we have kind of a conversation that we have, and we're working on how to embed a scorecard and what that might look like. So from our perspective, not yet, but potentially in the future, that might be something that we would look at. It kind of depends on where the business goes and how we want to work with our partners. So TBC.
Yeah. I think similar to Kat, I was sort of embracing the scorecard idea. And then we're kind of rethinking that a little bit and looking at some other things like the overall health of the client in relation to our firm and how we work together, what we work on, things like that. And so a little bit less of the conversation, the go, no go conversations that we've been having. And again, turning to the data. So if we're all looking at the same data in our CRM, are we able to make an assessment, a better assessment about our chances of winning work? So that's kind of in the process that we're looking at. So again, a little bit to be continued on our side as well. There's a lot of different approaches to this, and I think all firms are sort of seeing what's working and what's not.
Perfect, thanks you all. Second question is directed at Nora. Do you have best practices for go, no go, for which pitches you use your elite team for?
Yeah, and similar to what we were just talking about, we're sort of in the process of reassessing that go, no go process. I think traditionally Baker and most other firms have looked at things like relationship, value of the opportunity, how much work have we done at that firm before, with that client before, things along those lines. And that was sort of part of what led us to whether the elite team works on it, or it goes to the document management team. I think that, again, that's evolving, but we've tried really hard to make that a black and white decision, and it's just not possible. So it's kind of gray area. So what I'm trying to do now is understand the gray area and what skills are needed, and how do we better meet that demand. The high-end panels all go to the elite team. Capability statements we try to keep in document management. So yeah, trying to figure out, like everybody else in life, right? Trying to figure out the gray area.
Perfect. Okay, and Kat, the last one's for you, and I think it's just to have you expand a little on, you mentioned 5 hours of training, and folks are wondering if that was with lawyers or staff, or if you could just kind of comment on who came to the training.
So at the moment, we've been with our marketing business development teams. So we have been doing 2.5-hour sessions for lots of different jurisdictions around the world. So trying to make the effort to do sessions in everybody's different time zone. So I have been repeating the same session a few times, but that's fine because it means everyone's getting up to speed. And later in the summer, we were basically trying to get everybody to a base level and to be have the same knowledge and understanding. We're going to run a series of practice-specific trainings, kind of lunch and learn sessions for each of the teams, and do some exciting things around technology and diversity and lots of our different hot topics. And then hopefully in the autumn, we'll be starting our program of training with some of the lawyers. We're kind of doing a little test group with one of our practice areas, and then looking at how we roll that out across the firm and what feedback we get. So always, I don't know if other people find this, but always tricky to get buy-in for lawyers spending their time on training. And even though they see pictures as quite a high priority, it's still difficult to get them to get in the room. So we're hoping that, because we've had some fabulous feedback, and the test group will then make other people go, hey, I want that training, and we'll get to get in front of them as well. So well, it slightly depends on where we are in the world though, because obviously that would be nice to do in person. So we'll see what happens.
Awesome.
Right.
Well, I've exhausted the questions, David, so I'll shoot it back over to you.
Very good. Well, thank you all. That concludes this webinar. Nora, thank you very much. Kat, Jobst, appreciate your time. The audience, thank you for your interest. A recording of this will be available for those that weren't able to attend, or if you want to watch it again for some reason, that'd be great. And have a great rest of your day and evening. Thank you.
Thank you
Take
so
care.
much.
Thank you, everybody.